Alright, guess it's time for another one of these review thingies that I'm doing. I'm Colton, just in case you didn't already know that. So, yeah, now that I have, started off the review ever so, wow, this introduction is really stupid. Okay, so, I'm sorry, guys, it's kind of early over here. It's just barely 9 a.m. right now. But that's not important. So this is my review for chapter 568, Skyship. And I guess really the first thing I have to say about this chapter is, I am very surprised at how dense this chapter is, considering it is only 13 pages. And I know what you're probably thinking, what? That's kind of short. What's going on? And honestly, I thought I thought when the chapter came out online in English, I thought whoever translated it, I thought maybe whoever was translating it accidentally left some pages out or something. 'Cause sometimes that kind of thing happens, but apparently, I don't want to believe it, but yeah, we only got 13 pages this week. And I mean, not that I'm upset about that or anything. I'm more so surprised. But I mean, at the same time, when I really thought about it last night, I guess I'm not too surprised, if only for the fact that, a couple of weeks ago at this point, it wasn't too long ago that Sorachi had to take 2 weeks off from Jump because of an illness. And if I remember that correctly, I could be remembering this totally wrong. If I remember correctly, I think he had to be hospitalized for whatever was going on. I mean, whatever it was, it was bad enough to where he had to take a 2-week break from Jump, and Gintama had to be absent for those 2 weeks. And I've noticed since then that every chapter that's been released after he came back from Jump has been about 17 pages long, which I mean, even before then, oh God, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, about how Gintama's chapter lengths have been kind of inconsistent since a point, and I'm totally not looking up my Twitter messages to look that up. I'm totally not stalling at all, because if I were to be stalling, that'd be unprofessional. And okay, here it is. So from chapters 553 to 558, those were all 17 pages each. But then from chapters 559 to 561, those were all normal length chapters at 19 pages long. And then this is where it gets weird. 562 was 17 pages. 563 was 19 pages. And then pretty much from 564 and onwards have all been 17 pages, at least up until this chapter I'm talking about right now, which is 13 pages. So I'm gonna say that at some point, Sorachi probably wasn't feeling very good, but him or the editorial department or something probably didn't want to let him go right away because usually when I think, me personally, when I think something's wrong with my body, I go through this short period of denial where I'm like, oh man, oh my, if I don't know, for some stupid example, it feels like I don't have a hand, but my hand is still there. So maybe if I wait 2 weeks, maybe that numbness will go away. But then I don't know, somehow it'll turn out that, oh shit, I actually don't have a hand, and for some reason I thought I had a hand, but I don't, again, that was a really stupid example, but some people, when they think something's wrong with their body, they don't really want to admit it at first, and they want to see if it goes away, because, some people just don't like going to the hospital, or maybe they don't have the money or health insurance to, pay for whatever's wrong with them, and for somebody to fix it. So, again, anything could have happened, but it seems like before Sorachi took his break a few weeks back, or I guess a few months back at this point, the editorial department probably wanted to give him a little leeway, and probably wanted to be a little more understanding of whatever he was going through. So if he turned in a couple of chapters that were 2 pages short of a standard chapter of manga in a weekly magazine, then they weren't going to give him too much shit about it, because Gintama's on its way to ending, I think, at this point anyway. So they're probably giving him a little. They're probably cutting him a little slack. And again, everything I'm saying right now is a super, super educated guess. This is all speculation on my part, but that's just what it seems like to me, which honestly I think is a good thing, because, I think I might have talked about this on Twitter, and I'm sorry if none of this is interesting, and I promise I'll get to the chapter in just a second, but I've talked about this before on Twitter and other places, but I'm really glad that the people who oversee the production of manga for their respective manga anthologies seem to be giving authors a bit of a break every now and then, because for those who don't know, writing and drawing a weekly comic is hell, and at some point, if you do it long enough, it takes a huge toll on the author. Like, for example, Eiichiro Oda, the author of a little comic known as One Piece, has gone on record in stating that he only gets about 3 hours of sleep every night, because he's constantly working on One Piece. And with Oda, that's because he loves working on manga. That's what he legitimately loves what he does, and that's fine. Like, I totally respect that. I totally respect him for having the passion that he does for his work. But yeah, like, working on manga weekly is super hellish, and at some point does take a toll on the author's body. And that's why with Oda specifically, he's been taking more breaks, since he had to be hospitalized. I don't remember how long ago that was at this point. I think that was like a year ago at this point. But yeah, if I honestly, at some point, I think we're going to get to a point where, the people who oversee the production of these individual manga titles, we're going to get to a point where the people overseeing the production of this stuff, are going to realize, oh my god, we're destroying the health of the people who are creating such wonderful work. Maybe we should throw them a bone every once in a while. Not to the extent of Togashi, who I don't even know what his deal is, taking as long of breaks as he does from creating Hunter x Hunter. He's a special case. But yeah, nothing that extreme, but frequent subsequent breaks from creating what they do, to give them some time to rest. That's kind of been happening with a few Jump authors now, because I know I don't know if anyone else listening to this follows the series, but I know World Trigger, though I don't read it anymore, I know that has been taking quite a few breaks throughout the year, which, I think, again, is fine. I want the people behind the manga that I love reading to kind of stay alive longer. I would think that's in their best interest. I'm again, I can make all the educated guesses I want, but in the end, I'm not really sure why Sorachi's chapters haven't been, I'm not sure why the page length for his chapters have been so inconsistent at all, but if it makes him feel any better, and it puts less work on him, and he can still make 13-page chapters that are as dense as this work, then I'm totally fine with it. I kind of want Sorachi to stay alive long enough to finish up Gintama, and I want to see how it ends. So, again, yeah, let's just keep our manga authors happy, keep them healthy. Don't completely turn their body and soul to ash. You know, so yeah, go Sriracha, get better, because I know he's totally listening. Okay, so enough of my rant that nobody cares about. Let's just get to the chapter. So I'm trying to figure out where to start first. So I guess chapter 568, Skyship. I'm not sure if I said it in my last review, but I really thought Sakamoto's, like, I guess I wasn't really sure. Like, I almost thought Sakamoto and the Kairin Maru, Kaien Maru. I don't remember what the name of his ship is. His main ship, I guess. Whatever. I wasn't sure. Like, I thought for a split second maybe like he would actually go down with the ship, or I guess not really. I guess. Well, I'm really fucking up. I guess what I'm actually trying to say is I wasn't sure how he and his crew were going to escape from his ship sinking. So I was glad to see that the other ships in his fleet came to his rescue, and oh my god, it's like such a small little thing, but when Sakamoto's crew, I don't know who said it, but I think one of my favorite lines in this chapter was, "This time it's our turn to save our captain." That's such a, like, that line made me so happy. Like, that made me smile. Considering Sakamoto and Mutsu's recent flashback little mini arc in the anime a couple months back at this point. That's such a nice, like, little callback, I think. Like, I loved that so much. Nothing else really to say about that. Something else that I kind of like about this chapter is because for like the first half of the chapter or so is pretty much just Nobunobu and Mutsu kind of having a dialogue about, again, comparing Nobunobu's leadership to Sakamoto's, and how Sakamoto, how neither Sakamoto nor his men abandoned him, whereas Nobunobu obviously abandoned his retainers, and again, his retainers doing the same thing also earlier on in the arc. While reading that part of the chapter, I'm surprised that I didn't see this before, I guess, maybe, but what I really liked about this chapter, among many things, was how many parallels there are between Nobunobu and Mutsu as characters. Because really think about it for a second, because Mutsu, while talking to Nobunobu, talks about all this stuff like, oh well, basically telling him, how she knows how Nobunobu feels, because Nobunobu, at this moment, he's had his little, like, epiphany, and he's starting to kind of change his ways a bit, and how he views his leadership, I guess. I'm not sure if that really makes any sense. And Mutsu, pretty much Mutsu knows what it's like to be in Nobunobu's position. Nobunobu and Mutsu are very similar in the sense where, because the both of them were both pretty much groomed to take on a particular title or position, with Nobunobu obviously being the next in line for Shogun, while Mutsu, during her little flashback mini arc, was pretty much sort of on her way to becoming the leader of the Chidori Space Pirates, and being in charge of, like, this huge slave trade and all that stuff. But it wasn't until they met Sakamoto that not only did they realize how empty their life was up to that point, but Sakamoto also helped them, gain a new perspective which in turn started leading them down the path to a more, I guess, a more fulfilled life in a sense, where, because, you know, the whole thing with Mutsu was that, you know, she was just kind of doing her duty. She was just kind of doing her job, and she didn't really think about it too much. Like, she just kind of assumed, oh yeah, this is just kind of how business is. Like, you know, it doesn't really, like how the people feel about it doesn't really matter. You know, she's just doing her job. And, you know, it wasn't until she met Sakamoto that she realized just how, like, miserable and unhappy all of the slaves were, and how there's probably a different way of going about business and a different way of making transactions, basically. So yeah, Sakamoto was pretty much the catalyst for this big change in the lives of both Nobunobu and Mutsu. Where Nobunobu was going to go from here is still kind of up in the air at this point. Like, is he going to go back to being shogun, but just a better shogun? Or maybe is he going to join the Kaientai and, you know, come aboard and be a pirate, I guess. That would be kind of interesting, actually. I'm not sure if I want it, but at the same time, I kind of do. I don't know, just that would be so interesting to see, but that's neither here nor there. I still think that's a little bit of ways away. So let's get to another thing about this chapter, and that's the reveal of Sakamoto's war injury. I mean, just hear me out on this. I'm a bit skeptical on the reveal of this, only because I'm kind of mixed on this. This reveal that we got for Sakamoto this chapter of his war injury, this is one of those weird things where, like, either Sorachi had this in mind from the beginning of the series, or it's probably more likely that he, like, at some point during the run of Gintama, that he just kind of came up with this on the fly and was like, oh, that's kind of cool, I'll just kind of add that in. Well, I don't think we'll ever find that out. You know, that's for Sorachi to know and for us to probably never find out. And the reason why I'm sort of mixed on this also is because, and I mean, I think I was talking about in my chapter 566 review about the whole Utsuro reveal and how people think that cheapens certain things that happened beforehand in the series with the Shogun assassination arc. While I don't, this is not as bad, first off, or not as bad, but not as polarizing to the fan base, I guess. Definitely not. While I don't think this cheapens anything about Sakamoto, I also don't think it really adds much to his character or even his motivations as a character specifically, because and the other thing also is I think this is probably another reason why Sakamoto eventually left the war and why he left, you know, Gintoki, Takasuki, and Katsura. But I felt like his reasons for wanting to leave the war were already, like, really very well established as far back as chapter 27, which is basically the second half of Sakamoto's debut in the manga. Because Sakamoto in chapter, because you know, chapter numbers mean everything to everybody listening. Chapter 27, like I said, is the second half of Sakamoto's debut. And that particular chapter starts off with Sakamoto and Gintoki back in the war, where Sakamoto is basically talking to Gintoki about how he feels like the Amanto War is sort of meaningless, and how basically they're fighting a losing battle, and how Sakamoto feels like he wants to, you know, go into space and travel because, you know, there's something, not only is there something more for him out in space, but he wants to gain a higher perspective. You know, he wants to gain a perspective that's a little bigger than just people or Amanto or both. I don't remember exactly what we talked about on Life Lessons, but I do remember when me and my friends covered that particular chapter on life lessons on the normal podcast. I remember covering that, thinking like those two chapters that 2 chapter debut of Sakamoto, I think is, like, I still say to this day that is such a strong character introduction. Like, Sorachi does such a great job of establishing Sakamoto and what his character's all about in just 2 chapters. But yeah, going back to the whole war injury thing, I feel like it doesn't cheapen anything, but it doesn't really add anything to his character, mostly because, again, in Chapter 27, I feel like Sorachi already did a very good job of establishing Sakamoto's character and why he wants to leave the war. This is just a more, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. This is just a more, I guess, this is a more plausible reason. This is definitely a very good reason to leave, because, because of his injury, and I mean, they're kind of vague about it, but he possibly can't use a sword anymore. And I think that kind of leads into something else I want to discuss about this particular reveal. Is while I don't think it necessarily really adds anything to Sakamoto's motivations as a character, what I do think this does a great job of is, I think Sorachi added this in as an excuse to further explore the personalities of the War Four, the Joey Four, whatever you want to call them, because even very earlier on, when Sakamoto made his debut, and he sort of talked about his 3 friends and how they're different from him and all that stuff. Even as early on as that, we already had a sense of, how different the 4 of them are compared to each other. And I always love exploring that. That's like some of my favorite stuff within Gintama. But I think this war injury, as skeptical as I am about the reveal, again, it does a very good job of it. It's a nice literary device, I think Sorachi uses to explore the different philosophies of all 4 of these characters. Because, Takasugi pretty much writes off Sakamoto completely as a samurai because of his injury, and pretty much tells him verbatim that, as a samurai, you're already dead, which is so cold. But I mean, I kind of expect that from Takasugi. So obviously, both Takasugi and Katsura, I think, especially Katsura, with earlier on in the arc, and how Katsura kind of likes to dog on Sakamoto for not being noble and only thinking about money and all that stuff. Both Katsura and Takasugi, I think, are very, 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 very traditional in their views of what a samurai is. And they basically, they represent that old time tradition of what a samurai is, and how they're very stuck in their ways, and how, if you have if you can't even touch a sword, then you're pretty much useless, and you can't do anything. You're dead weight, and it's just simple as that. It's just, for them, it's just that black and white. But then, Gintoki, obviously, he comes in and is like, hey man, come on, just because you can't pick up a sword doesn't mean you're not a samurai. And that's always been Gintoki's role in the series, even as far back, not even as far, since the very beginning. Gintoki's role has always been to challenge that idea of what makes a samurai. I think one of the most iconic moments in the entire series, as early on as Chapter 9, where Gintoki and Hijikata have their first real fight. I mean, they clashed before then, but this was their first real fight. They actually had a reason to fight each other. I mean, more so Hijikata than than Gin, but who's counting? But when Hijikata is all like, actually I don't even remember what he asks him, but he's trying so hard to read Gintoki, and Hijikata essentially asks him what being a samurai means to him, or something like that. And I remember Gin, Gin basically tells Hijikata straight up what I'm trying to get at is that he basically plays by his own rules. Like very much implying that Gintoki is always going to do what he wants. He's not just going to conform to whatever society's rules are, which I know that sounds like such a hippie, like, rebel thing, like, hey man, don't listen to the man, the man's always gonna bring you down, man, and all that stuff. But no, like, it's definitely, like, Gintama as a series, as a story, has always challenged the idea of what a samurai is, and how different people view that idea differently. And I think, like, looking back on it, like, that's definitely, like, that's another one of the most interesting things I think that Gintama has to offer, in my opinion. But yeah, so in that respect, I do like how Sakamoto's injury was used here, because again, it was another way for Sorachi to kind of explore that. But I guess I thought I had a segue, but guess not. I think one of the last things I really want to talk about that I'm surprised I didn't mention already was I think what we're supposed to get out of this chapter, especially thinking back on earlier chapters, is that, and Mutsu even points it out herself, that Sakamoto represents the future. Because really, think about it for a second. I guess going back to everybody's different philosophies and what they represent. Takasugi and Katsura, again, like I said, are both very traditional. Gintoki plays by his own rules, doesn't really conform to anyone's particular ideals, but his own. Sakamoto, I think, is definitely sort of similar to Gintoki in a way, though Sakamoto is different from all three of them in the way where he wants to take in different viewpoints. Because, again, referring back to chapter 27, or specifically the beginning, where Sakamoto in the past is talking to Gintoki during the war. Sakamoto, obviously, very early on in the war, saw that they were fighting a losing battle, and that Sakamoto thought that, somewhere out there in the far depths of space, thought that there was something better for him out there, that he could be doing something better with his life, or at the very least had a specific goal in mind, or some kind of dream in mind that he wanted to start trekking the path to achieving. And as Sakamoto even says it himself, that he through this dream of his, through traveling through space, he wants to gain a higher perspective, a perspective that is bigger than just people or Amanto. Because Sakamoto's whole thing is, again, he's an entrepreneur, he's a businessman. So technically, he doesn't really take sides. He, as a businessman, and though, Sakamoto's a little more, in a way, he's a little more noble, in a sense, but, Sakamoto is still a businessman at the end of the day. He's basically going to side with whoever has the most money. He's going to side with whoever has, wants to do the most business with him. Which, in a way, makes him kind of like... Sakamoto's pretty much like the neutral party. Which I think, I could go on and on and on and on about Sakamoto, but and I mean I'm sorry if I'm kind of like uh, trailing off with my thoughts here, but it's just so interesting to think how different Sakamoto is from the rest of the group, um, because Takasugi and Katsura, obviously it goes without saying that they side against the Amanto, um, at least at that time. Gintoki doesn't really care, because I think all that really mattered to him was protecting his friends and Shoyo. So again, he just kind of does with that whatever. So in that sense, he's also kind of neutral, but he kind of tends to side more with I think with humans than Amanto. In a lot of specific cases, whereas Sakamoto doesn't really have any hangups. He just kind of, again, he kind of works with whoever gives him the most money. Again, he's running a business, and that just makes sense. So yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, other than, Sakamoto represents, I think, again, not only like he represents the future, and with that being said, he kind of represents change in a way. Like Sakamoto, he rolls with the punches. Like at some point, when Gintama gets to that point in their alternate history where Japan willingly opens up to foreign countries and all that stuff, Sakamoto is going to thrive when that eventual change comes to the Gintama universe, because he already does so much business with with both people and Amanto that like he's going to thrive at the end, when that time when the times they are a changing, when that happens, he's going to come out on top. He is going to, like, people think he's successful now. He's going to be super successful when the big changes to the world start to happen, when people are more, when there isn't so much that prejudice there, against Amanto or humans or whatever. Like really thinking about it more, and like the more I talk about it, the more I kind of can't wait to see where Sakamoto goes after this arc is over, after the series is over, and what he's up to, because I think it's safe to say that even with all this stuff going on, that that whatever changes come to the Gintama universe, he's going to come out on top. He's going to be so much better off than everybody else. And I think that's the point I'm really trying to make here, is that, yeah, he represents that change. Whether he's the one who, I guess, leads or represents that change in Gintama society, or whether he's the one, or whether he's one of the many people, who are probably going to benefit off of it in terms of financial benefits. Like now I kind of can't wait. I can't wait to see where Sakamoto's character goes. Now I'm kind of excited, actually. But I guess the last kind of important thing about this is this flashback about Sakamoto also kind of transitions into what looks like the beginnings of Gintoki's fight with Bato. So yeah, I hope Bato turns out to be a more interesting adversary than Oboro, at least, because I'm not sure if I've talked about it elsewhere, but I could not give a shit less about Oboro. He's not interesting in the slightest. I mean, the only thing I really want to know about him is how he used those like faux Rasengans back in the back in the Courtesan of a Nation arc. That's kind of the only thing I want to know, but I doubt, if that hasn't been explained already, I feel like we're probably not going to get an explanation of that. But then again, that's neither here nor there. So that's pretty much the chapter, and that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, other than my predictions for next chapter, I guess they're not really so much predictions as to like what I want to see happen. So obviously, like I said, it looks like we're getting the beginnings of Gin versus Bato next chapter. Though after witnessing Katsura and Sakamoto's fights and seeing what they explored in terms of their characters, I can't help but wonder what we're gonna get from Gin's fight. Like, I mean, I feel like, I mean, because I mean, like, it's not to say that like Gin's not a good main character, and like, there's obviously more to Gin. Like, Gin is like like one of the most unreadable main characters of any manga I've ever read, which I think which is part of the reason why I find Gin so interesting as a Shonen Jump main character. But so I guess there's probably something to explore. I guess I'm just kind of confused as to like what we can explore about Gin's character at this point. I feel like we're pretty, like, unlike with Katsura and Sakamoto, especially Sakamoto, I feel like we were already kind of well acquainted with what Gin is all about and why he fights the battles he does. So I feel like in that sense, not that there's less to explore. I guess there are just so many possibilities. I don't really know how Sorachi's going to handle this, which is why I hope that Sorachi just kind of out of nowhere throws a curveball at us. Like, I don't know, Gin and Bato are fighting, and then maybe Takasugi finally comes out of his coma or something and maybe helps him, and maybe we can have them fight together or something, or Kagura's corpse just comes out of nowhere, or something really extremely morbid like that. I don't know why I thought about that just now. I don't know, like, I hope Sorachi mixes up this fight in particular, because I don't really see what he can do to make this fight particularly special. Like, again, Katsura's fight was amazing. Sakamoto's fight, I think, is really, really good, considering, you know, what we've gotten about his character in the past and what was already established, and kind of exploring that. But I don't know. What I'm saying is I hope this fight is more than just a simple one-on-one, though I guess there really isn't anything wrong with that either. I just want more to come out of this fight. But I think Sorachi in the end will deliver. Like, something's gonna happen. I don't know, maybe somehow the Yato will get involved, I don't know. And with that long rambling done, again, I'm sorry guys if I seemed a little out of sorts with this particular review. I got up pretty early this morning, and I guess I'm going to assume there are some places where my thoughts weren't as together as I would like them to be. Because again, this chapter was super dense. Like, I think this was, I think this has been my favorite chapter to talk about. If only because, you know, this chapter was only 13 pages, but it was so well done, I think, considering how much Sorachi packed in there and how much we really got, or I guess how much I got to really think about and how much I got to explore about this. So yeah, I do hope the next chapter is a full chapter. I don't know, like, I want it to be a full chapter, but if Sorachi has to, you know, draw and write, you know, shorter chapters to keep himself from kicking the bucket, or not kicking the bucket, I shouldn't say that stuff, I don't want to jinx us, you know, keep him from, you know, keep his health from getting worse, then I'm all for it. I'm all for treating manga artists like human beings. That's always something I support 100%. So yeah, I think that's about it for this review. So hopefully I'll see you guys next time for chapter 569.